We saw ISO 2022 go live for real just now. What does this mean for crypto now? Some people, though, think it means nothing at all. Some people believe it will make XRP go completely crazy. I'm in the middle of this, and I don't think it's going to be nothing in the end. I don't think it will change price action the way most people think it will. I'd like to talk about a few things and break this down a bit. Thus, let us begin with the news that we heard from Swift. So Swift wrote a post saying that this weekend is a big one for payments. From November 22nd, the time when MT and ISO 2022 message standards can live together, will end. The only format that will be used for all financial to financial payment direction messages is ISO 2022. Better compliance, more data, and better automation are all coming with ISO 2022. But getting ready is the most important thing to do to avoid broken messages and operating delays. Get ready for the weekend. All Fin and Fin Plus users are strongly encouraged not to send any messages from Saturday to Sunday and to look at the Swift knowledge base for future information, solving tips, and information on how to handle different situations. At this point, you should know that ISO 2022 is now fully here. I'd like to talk about a few things now. The first thing I want to talk about is what I think ISO 2022 really is. I'd like to use this Smoke Dog post because I agree that it's a great way to look at things. So ISO 2022 is the missing piece for interoperability with current rails. Standards like ISO 22 are used to connect blockchain-based settlement systems with traditional clearing systems. Banks now use ISO 202 guidelines to make their internal systems and blockchain work with each other. Here we can see how the legal side of things is getting clear with MA and Genius. And then there is the framework for institutions. Finally, the last piece, the financial machinery that is regulated has grown up. Banks and safekeeping companies now provide services like keeping digital assets safe, giving out tokens, and confirming reserves in real time. These services can also work with existing rails by using standards like ISO 22 to link blockchain-based payments with traditional clearing systems. So how does this really work? We can now connect back to, blockchain-based technology since a new message center went live. Not at all, not at all. It doesn't work that way. By making data fully clear, this makes it possible for big traditional players to connect to blockchain and for blockchain to connect to big traditional players. In fact, JP Morgan said the same thing in December 2024. This one is from Swift. Does your company feel ready to switch to ISO 222? JP Morgan Payments has given us useful information about how to adopt them successfully. They show how planning ahead and having a clear strategy can make your payments ecosystem future-proof. Moving to ISO 2022 is important for making sure the payments environment is ready for the future and for getting the most out of enhanced data. Now, how does this really work as the key? What's going on here? How does this make it easy to connect to networks and technologies that use blockchain? It's really very easy. We have more data, better compliance, and better tools if we go back to the first post from Swift. What ISO really does with this standard is make it easier for people to connect because the language, structure, style, and everything else that is used for data around the world is changing. It makes everything the same. This gives us a clear picture of how it can connect and how these two worlds really work. Fault tolerance is no longer an issue once you have that uniform data model. Data is no longer broken up into pieces. The process is made much easier by it. The big banks, clearing houses, and all of these platforms are also being told by ISO 22 that they need to improve their own processes. The order is new and has never been there before. This makes it much easier to sell. This comes from what Bob Wee said about players like Ripple, Stellar, Hedera, and Chainlink. It doesn't matter who those big names are. Now it's easier for cells to add banks and bring them into the community. That rich data will be very important for blockchains to be able to handle and break down all of that data. Also, banks will now be able to use KYC and AML for legal purposes. It will be clear for you to see the deals, right? All of this is so important for making it possible for blockchains and traditional financial systems to join with ease. In the end, it's all about having clean facts. When you have open data that is much more rich, it's much easier to get people to sign up. It also helps with compliance and makes automation better. In relation to this, we also heard from Bank of America, which is another big bank, about how ISO 22 migration ties the global economy. As the global economy becomes more linked, it becomes more important to have structured data and streamlined payment systems. ISO 222 was created as a standard for payment messages to make different market systems more consistent and easy to connect. So far, it has been used by more than 70 countries and most of the world's major trading markets. In July 2025, Bank of America was able to properly use Fedwire Fund Service ISO 22 messages. As a result of this important step forward for the global payments and USD clearing industry, all USD clearing financial market infrastructures, such as FMI Fed Wire Fund Services and the Clearinghouse Interbank Payment System, can now talk to each other in a common language. This makes it easier for them to work with other ISO 22-based financial market infrastructures around the world, like SWIFT and T2 Euro clearing. Now let's look at the perks, okay? We have that info that is organized. It's important. The better data is on top of the better data. It makes things like messages and that work better. The whole point of this split is that it makes things a lot easier. Like all of these chat and platform tools, it makes getting started with new technologies a lot easier. And here's the crazy part. Guess which big bank was the first to have a full migration? It's getting more and more exciting. The big migration weekend for banks to switch to the ISO 22 only era at SWIFT has started. Standard Chartered Bank, that's right. Standard Chartered was one of the first big banks to hand out a full PDF file explaining how to move your business to Us.Thankx. This coming from Center is crazy. I'll explain why in a moment. This is crazy to see. Why is this so crazy? Since it's just another big bank, right? We were just talking about JP Morgan. We just talked about how Bank of America has been ahead of the curve in this area. A big reason why Standard Chartered is well known is that they were one of the main investors in Ripple in 2016. They know how important it is for the bank to go digital, right? It's even talked about here, along with how Ripple is one of the most advanced DT companies in the business and has a lot of experience with compliance and banking services. Also, this is 2016, almost 10 years ago. Also, we should remember that Sender Chartered and their Zodiac custody platform joined Ripple's own Metatico, which is now Ripple Custody. In 2023, that took place. On top of that, we know that Senator Chartered said in April that XRP could reach $12.50 by 2028 if ETFs become possible and the law becomes clear. And this is how they broke it down. That's so cool. Center Charter thinks that Ripple and XRP will go up in value. Besides that, I did make a post in April of this year in which I said that ISO 22 would be confirmed by a big bank employee as being 100% important. This is the person in charge of business banking at Standard Chartered Bank around the world. He said that ISO 2022 can help us move from standard finance to decentralized finance. Because once more, let's come back here. Because of this standard and the data that goes into it, it is now possible to connect blockchain native settlement with traditional clearing systems. This is possible by using existing rails and standards like ISO 2022 to make sure that everything is compliant and clear.